My Data Body is a research creation project developed at the University of Alberta by an interdisciplinary team across the arts and sciences as part of the research project Know Thyself as a Virtual Reality. With this project, our goal was to better know, see, hold and feel what Deborah Lupton terms our human data assemblages. In this presentation, we will explain the VR artwork My Data Body and how it has guided us towards thinking about how we situate ourselves within a world where artificial intelligence is at once everywhere and nowhere, yet has the primary perspective or view on our data bodies. In My Data Body, the magnetic resonance scan body of the artist Marilyn Oliver floats prone within a cloud of her textual Facebook data. Into the semi-transparent virtual body are multiple other data corpuses downloaded from social media platforms plotted into cross-sections or slices through the scanned body. Mac terminal data are plotted into bone, Google data archives are drawn into muscle, and Facebook information is traced into fat. Passwords and login flow back and forth through veins and arteries, whilst retinal scans, dental scans, and 3D meshes of organs and bones segmented from the volumetric MRI scan data are suspended within the quantified and datafied body. The body of the user can fly around or into My Data Body and clip away the raycast volume-rendered scan data. Users can pull out and read the mundane information in the text slices. They can extract bones and organs, some of which have mini data clouds emanating from them, or contents that can be poured. The brain cascades login windows, the heart spills emojis, and the intestines scatter data cookies. To echo historical public anatomical dissections, there is an audience circling the body of Oliver's facial recognition scans wearing different emotions. Recalling myths of nuns performing dissections in order to find evidence of saintliness or sin, Oliver's pseudonymized SIN or social insurance number is pinned to her coccyx. Each object in My Data Body has an accompanying sound, which is revealed only when it is grasped and removed from the body. The soundscape, created by Scott Smallwood and Stefan Moore, is a culminating mixture of these objects, in whatever configuration they are placed in by the user. They incorporate biometric digital recordings of Oliver's voice and heartbeat, as well as textual sounds, scratching and scribblings, gurgling, squelching and resonances, attached to each element, so that as My Data Body is dissected visually and spatially, it is also and recomposed sonically. Indeed, the sound composition is only created as bones, organs and slices are extracted. The skeleton, for example, is a sound composition fractioned into 8 parts that is solely experienced by removing the bones from the body and piling them in a heap outside of it. Furthermore, bones, organs and slices are all programmed to return to the body after a certain time of inactivity, echoing the Sisyphean pressure to quickly and continually extract and make use of data in contemporary culture. VR's ability to resize the user is also key conceptually. When the artwork first loads, My Data Body is life-size. The user is able to walk through My Data Body, lean down into it, lie underneath it, measure themselves up against it. Pressing X shrinks the user so that they are immersed inside the data body as if they are in a cloud, whereas Y expands them so that they can hold the whole body in their virtual hands. And yet another layer of biometric data capture, the instructions for how to navigate and interact with My Data Body, are scribbled onto the user's virtual hands in Oliver's digitized handwriting. Poetic text written by J.R. Carpenter flows through and dangles from My Data Body. Carpenter composed lines of verse for each of the bones so that when the bones are pulled out of the body, the text can be rotated and read. From the ribcage, for example, hang the phrases, "I dream I hear a body sleeping in the bed beside me. But it's only the wind, big ribs rising and falling. It's only the house breathing through its nose." Pasted into the back of the retinal scans are the words, "I cannot imagine a mark on my body any deeper than the memory of text burned into my retina, left smouldering in my brain." The lyrical text interrupts the cold data speak in the text slices, blurring boundaries between the data body and the embodied societal structures it inhabits. A stream of text particles washes over and through My Data Body. The software Unity in which My Data Body was created has particle effects that are generated from gridded image files, which are subdivided and sequentially emitted from a specific location in the scene, with various speed, colour and transparency settings. Typically used to simulate smoke, clouds, or fire effects, Unity's particle system was repurposed here to generate visual poetry. Drawing on long traditions of permutational digital poetry, Carpenter created 2 particle streams of text that pass through my data body. One stream plays on ways the word body is used metaphorically: a body of mass, a body of water, a body of land, a body of data, a body of law. The other stream emits verbs: blowing, moving, seeping, surrounding, reading, legislating. The lungs secrete out of breath, take a breath, take a deep breath, save your breath. The heart sheds murmur, palpitation, attack. These particles encourage contemplation of how it is to live with and as a body of data, what it feels like to have a body that is endlessly growing, constantly moving, and demanding attention. In my data body, the medically scanned, passive, obedient, semi-transparent body becomes a data processing site that can be pulled apart, and recomposed. For decades, there have been grave concerns about the amount of data that is being surrendered to massive corporations and governments in exchange for their free services. In Consent to Our Data Bodies, Paz Penna and Joanna Varron bring a feminist lens to thinking through consent to data usage, explaining the problematics of binary consent options and the illusion that consenting to data usage agreements can be a free, rational, and individual choice. We know that Facebook and Google aren't free, that we are paying for their services with our data, and that it can and is being used against us to terrifying effect, especially with regards to social mobility and justice. In Weapons of Mass Destruction, Cathy O'Neill sets out how data is systematically being used to control access to education and insurance. Yet not consenting to these systems would exile us from important social networks, limit education and employment options. COVID-19 has increased discourse and potential acceptance around biometrics being used to lock and unlock our bank accounts, health records, workplace and countries of residence. Although data activists have succeeded in rolling back data abuse in some parts of the world, we see them continue to grow in others. When researching face scanning for my data body, we discovered MeasureKit, an app that not only allows you to download 3D face scans, but also to see all the micro measurements smartphones are enabled to constantly read. The face scans in my data body display these measurements as decorative spikes with the potential to do harm. The original intention of my data body was to collect all of Oliver's data and include it in a single VR scene. But in our age of endless datafication, capturing our data corpuses is an increasingly futile and impossible task. There is just too much data for humans to make sense of aesthetically. Every strata of our material and psychological being can now be quantified, digitized, and fed to an AI algorithm, from the thickness of the vessels of our retinas, to the number of times we toss and turn in the night, to the amount of heat we contribute to a room. Furthermore, my data body is human-centric. It was conceptualized and created with an embodied human, reader, or user in mind. It literally centers both the magnetic resonance scan virtual body as a vessel that collects and aggregates data, and the body of the viewer who interfaces with the virtual scene by the technical prosthesis of the VR hardware. We now question this VR hardware afforded and human-centered point of view, or point of being on and with data. For data is no longer collected and written for humans, but for algorithms. We find ourselves grappling with how artists who seek to elevate emotion and embodiment can find meaningful ways to represent the ever-expanding, entangled and evolving relationship between humans and AI technologies. As the KTVR team moves forward with our research, we ask, what is the point or perspective from which to understand and know our human data assemblages? How can we better position ourselves closer to or within AI technologies so that we can know, see, and feel ourselves through the lens of AI?